Minesweepers in the breakaway enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh clear the land of cluster bombs. Its Ministry of Emergencies says Azerbaijan is using them to bomb the main city of Stepanakert. Armenia and Azerbaijan accused each other on Tuesday of violating a humanitarian ceasefire. Reuters witnessed shelling in the town of Martuni in Nagorno-Karabakh and in Terta in Azerbaijan. Both sides deny breaking the truce, which was brokered by Russia and went into effect on Saturday. It was meant to allow a swap of prisoners and bodies of those killed, as well as to quell fighting. Nagorno-Karabakh is an enclave in Azerbaijan that is ruled and populated by ethnic Armenians. The fighting over it for the last couple of weeks is the worst since the mid-1990s.
On the first day of early voting in Georgia, people lined up for hours to cast their ballots. In some counties, voters reported waiting more than 10 hours. But it isn't just in-person voting that's shattering records across the country as people make their voices heard. More than 10.5 million ballots have already been mailed in or dropped off, a number that could see voter turnout the highest since 1908. Despite fears over the COVID-19 pandemic, long waits and technical issues in some states, early voting is hitting historic numbers. With so much at stake and President Trump's unfounded claims that mail-in voting could lead to massive fraud, there are problems. The Republican Party in California installed dozens of their own ballot drop-off boxes, virtually indistinguishable from boxes sanctioned by the state. Officials call them unofficial and illegal, and have insisted they be removed.
Police Minister Becky Cele says the alleged killer of farm manager Brendan Horner should never have been released from prison. Cele has visited the Horner family and confirmed one of the accused of murdering the 21-year-old had been arrested 16 times previously. The minister has also promised to root out corrupt cops who are allegedly part of a syndicate stealing livestock from the farmers. The farmers claim this is behind their distrust of the police.
It's emerged the man had been arrested 16 times and had been convicted 4 times. Cele and State Security Minister Eyanda Dlodlo visited Horner's families today and also held a meeting with farmers in the Free State. They were told that stock theft is rampant in the Senekal, Bethlehem and Paul Rue area, and his own officers are allegedly involved.
The police is physically involved with the stock theft, so that we're getting no any cooperation with them of tackling the problem. You can go and look at how many stock theft cases there were, and how few arrests, and how few cases, even less, has gone through the court.
Nigeria's head of police has now ordered his men to stop using force against protesters. He's also ordered the unconditional release of all those arrested during the demonstrations. Let me show you these pictures from Monday. That's police using live ammunition against people demonstrating in Lagos, Nigeria's biggest city. They've also been using powerful water cannons. Amnesty International says at least 10 protesters have been killed so far. And Scenes like these from today have also been going on, and it's been happening for a week now. The demonstrators are calling for a notorious police unit known as SARS to be scrapped. It's the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, and it's widely accused of human rights violations, including torture and extrajudicial killings.
This very much started with students, and even high school students, and certainly university students, who earlier this year started to come out to protest after the banning of a progressive opposition party, which was very popular with youthful voters in last year's elections. Those protests have since morphed into much greater demands for political reform and, as I mentioned, into this very explosive issue of some demands for royal reforms. Now, the royal family is protected by very strict lèse-majesté laws here, and it's previously been regarded as a taboo to even raise such a debate. The students don't know that they can't carry this on their own, and they have been reaching out, and a group called the Red Shirts, who were supporters of two previous prime ministers who were deposed in coups in 2006 and 2014, have been at some of the previous protests. What everybody's watching today is not just the numbers of protesters, but the content, the makeup. Is this still just students, or is it a broader movement?
A World War II bomb exploded underwater as a team tried to defuse it. The powerful blast sent a column of water into the sky and shook buildings and boats nearby. Thankfully, nobody was injured. The Polish Navy had been working to defuse the bomb. It had been resting near the Baltic Sea, 40 feet beneath the surface for 75 years. The 19-foot bomb held more than 5,000 pounds of explosives. The bomb was known as a, quote, tall boy or earthquake bomb. It was used towards the end of the war by British forces, in this case in an attempt to sink a Nazi warship. Earthquake bombs were so powerful their explosions would trigger shockwaves, destroying large reinforced targets.
Our top focus in this edition, Saudi Arabia has failed in its bid to become a member of the United Nations Human Rights Council. China, Russia and Pakistan were elected members for the next 3 years. And this election raised a serious question once again among experts and human rights activists. Should rights violators be elected to the council at all? 15 positions were up for elections in the 47-seat human rights regulatory body. Pakistan and Cuba were among the controversial winners, along with China and Russia. Russia and Cuba ran unopposed in the UN General Assembly election. Saudi Arabia and China vied for membership in a 5-nation race for 4 spots, with Pakistan, Uzbekistan and Nepal. Candidates were elected by a secret ballot in geographical groups to ensure even representation.
According to a report, the Nepalese Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli continues to flout his own government's COVID-19 protocols even after several people close to him, including his aides and ministers, have tested positive. Now, KP Sharma Oli chaired an in-person cabinet meeting even though the protocol requires him to be in isolation. The report has further said that the Nepalese Prime Minister carried out these in-person meetings, clearly flouting the protocol. The report has not been made public yet, and details as to what actually happened in these meetings are not clearly known. And at this point of time, it is also not known whether KP Sharma Oli has himself got tested for the coronavirus. At least about 2 cabinet ministers and 7 of KP Sharma Oli's aides have contracted the virus.
Residents in Svetla are angry. Hours earlier, a street vendor was crushed to death. Abderazek Hashnawi was sleeping in a kiosk belonging to his son when bulldozers came and crushed it. This image shows the shop once it was destroyed. City workers were following orders. The booth was allegedly illegal. The victim's son says they didn't even check if anyone was inside. The brutal incident is being investigated.
Massive flooding has taken place in the Indian state of Telangana. The worst affected is the city of Hyderabad, where flooding has disrupted life in many parts. The residents have not been able to come out of their houses. Let's take a look at the latest coming in. The rains have been so intense that the water even washed away cars in the residential colonies. Massive waterlogging in the Begumpet area of Hyderabad, and forces had to be deployed to rescue people from the area. Several houses were submerged in the areas like Mayuri Nagar